On September 18, 2014, Scotland held an independence referendum. 55% of voters were opposed to Scotland leaving the United Kingdom and becoming an independent country, and 45% were in favor of it. So naturally, they remained a part of the UK. One of the main reasons people voted to stay with Britain was because of the uncertainty around whether or not an independent Scotland would be a part of the EU. But when Britain held the Brexit referendum on whether or not to leave the European Union in 2016, Scotland resoundingly voted no. The results of the December 12, 2019 UK general election have made the divide even more apparent. While the Conservative Party, whose members tend to support Brexit, won a massive majority in Parliament, the Scottish National Party, or SNP, a party running on Scottish independence, won most of Scotland's seats. Since the election, Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has been calling for another independence referendum. This all raises the question that people have been asking ever since England and Scotland joined together to form the UK. Welcome to That Is Interesting. I'm your host Carter. Today, what if Scotland became an independent country? Scotland, the northern part of Great Britain, has always been very different than the rest of the island. It is colder, more mountainous, filled with islands, lochs, and fjords, and its history has been heavily shaped by the Vikings that raided its coast and the Gaelic kingdoms that existed there for centuries. For much of its history, Scotland was covered with a series of small kingdoms speaking a different language than the kingdoms in England to the south. It was founded in the year 843 and was an independent country for nearly 1,000 years after. In 1603, Queen Elizabeth I of England died, leaving no heirs behind to rule the country. Her closest relative was her cousin James, who happened to already be the King of Scotland. So when Elizabeth died, James became the King of England and Ireland as well, and ruled each country separately. By 1707, England and Scotland had had the same ruler as one another for more than a century, and decided to join their two countries into one, forming the United Kingdom. Ireland later joined, and then most of it left, except for the portion known as Northern Ireland, which leaves us with the United Kingdom we know today. For the last 3 centuries, Scotland and the rest of Britain have gotten along pretty well. Over the years, Scotland's also been granted more and more autonomy. In 1997, they were given their own parliament, centered in the capital city of Edinburgh, which has some legislative authority, but is still second to the British Parliament as a whole. Parliaments for Wales and Northern Ireland soon followed. Scotland also has a First Minister, who acts as the leader of the Scottish Parliament. But during the last few years, Scotland's relationship with the rest of Britain has been fraught. As they were an independent country for nearly an entire millennium, Scotland maintains a strong national identity. Besides, with only 5.5 million people living in Scotland compared to England's 56 million, and the fact that the British government is centered in England, it often can seem to the people of Scotland that the Union revolves around England. While Scotland chose to remain with the Union in 2014, the 2016 Brexit referendum and 2019 general election have made it very clear that they are having second thoughts. So let's say there is a second referendum. Scotland votes yes on independence. What would an independent Scotland look like? What would it mean for the United Kingdom and Europe as a whole? An independent Scotland would be the 124th most populous country on Earth, with slightly less people than Liberia and slightly more than Kuwait. The United Kingdom, on the other hand, would remain the 22nd most populous country, not moving in the rankings at all. Scotland would probably remain a part of the European Union, as the desire to maintain EU membership is the main reason Scotland is calling for a second referendum. However, it would become much more difficult for people to travel between Scotland and the United Kingdom, as a hard border would likely be established between them, especially if the UK were to leave the EU. Scotland already has a flag, St. Andrew's Saltire, which would almost certainly become the flag of the new country. The capital city would most likely remain in Edinburgh, and the Scottish Parliament would probably just become the national government of the new country. As some self-government has already been devolved to Scotland, not much would really have to change were they to become an independent country. For Britain, on the other hand, Scottish independence could cause some problems. The British government has considered building a bridge from Scotland to Northern Ireland to strengthen national unity, but were Scotland to become independent, That would almost certainly complicate things. Scotland also holds much of Britain's offshore oil reserves, so were they to leave the UK, Britain would have to either find somewhere else to get their oil from, look to other sources of energy, or set up a trade deal with Scotland. Regardless, the vast offshore oil that would be in Scotland's possession would put the new country in a strong position for economic success were they to achieve independence. And independent Scotland could also have implications for Northern Ireland. Ever since the Brexit referendum, support in Northern Ireland for leaving the UK and joining the Republic of Ireland has grown. In 1973, Northern Ireland held its own referendum, asking voters whether they wanted to remain a part of Britain or leave and form a united Ireland. 98.9% of those who voted favored remaining with the UK. Today, however, polls show 62% of people from Northern Ireland approve of having another referendum within the next decade. 46% of voters said they would vote for United Ireland if a so-called hard Brexit happened that would have bad implications for Northern Ireland. While 46% is no majority, it's a big increase from the 1.1% who wanted a united Ireland back in 1973. So if Scotland becomes independent and a hard Brexit looks inevitable, the idea that Northern Ireland could try to leave as well and rejoin the rest of Ireland is certainly a possibility. Welsh independence seems much less likely. Polls tend to show at most 25% of Wales desires independence, but again, Scotland's departure may very well change those numbers. The official name of the UK, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, may even need to be changed if Scotland leaves, as the entirety of the island of Great Britain would no longer be part of the country. Perhaps it would be renamed something like the United Kingdom of England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Then, of course, there's the Union Jack. The British flag was made by combining elements of Scotland and England's flags, as well as a flag sometimes used to represent Ireland. Without Scotland, perhaps the UK would have to change its iconic flag. Plenty of people have speculated about what a new flag would look like, and came up with some pretty interesting ideas, most of which incorporate designs from the flag of Wales, designs from which are not included in the current British flag. So what do you think? Will Scotland become an independent country? Will it remain a part of the UK? Or will something else happen? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my past video on the history of the Union Jack. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned something new. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover the countries, cities, people, and places of the world and beyond. These videos will leave you saying, that is interesting.